video, we'll be talking about National Credit Act. In National Credit Act, we'll be talking about the credit sellers and the customers who want to buy on credit. Now, this act regulates both of this party. The credit grantors, the one who wants to sell on credit, and it regulates on how this credit grantor must give credit. They mustn't recklessly give credit just because of they want to make more profit and they just recklessly grant credit. So even the customers, they are not supposed to buy more than what they can afford. That's the aim of this act. So now we will be talking about the purpose of National Credit Act. Our first point, it promotes a fair, competitive credit market. Now, when we talk about fair, we're talking about it regulates, it instructs both parties, the one who wants to buy on credit and the one who wants to sell on credit, on how to do their business. And then our second point, it ensures that the customers of credit are well informed about this credit or the contract that they are entering. They need to be knowledgeable. One supposed to know how much interest one is going to pay on that credit.
How much?
How much?
Exactly how much was that credit before the interest is put on that credit. One supposed to be knowledgeable about that. And then it promotes the responsible granting of credit. Now, they must grant credit responsibly. They mustn't only focus on profit, but they need to grant credit responsible. The following point, it ensures that the credit, it is equally available. In other words, the credit grantor must not discriminate.
Less discriminating.
If you grant credit, you need to be fair to all customers. You mustn't discriminate, maybe favor the blacks or favor the whites. If you are a white, you are going to be granted credit, but if you are black, you are not going to be granted credit. It promote a fair way of granting credit. Right, it protects both the lender and the borrower to ensure that the borrower is not over indebted. One cannot borrow more than what he can afford.
No, that's too much money to borrow.
That's the other point. And then the other point, it ensures that the credit bureaus or the credit providers or the debt counselors are registered to avoid customer exploitation. So now, if you're a credit bureau, you're not going to just put someone's name there because you spite the person, because you are not happy about that person. Then you put that person's name on credit bureau. It ensures that customers are protected. Now, we will be talking about the impact of National Credit Act. We are going to start about the positive impact or the positive effectiveness. We're going to talk about 6 points. The first point, it lower bad debts, resulting in a better cash flow. Why does it lower bad debts? Because the business is going to grant credit responsible. So it won't grant credit to the customers who won't be able to pay. That is why it lowers bad debts. And then our second point, it protects the business against non-paying customers. In other words, the business, it's not going to give credit to someone who won't be able to pay. Then the third point, authorized credit providers may attract more customers. It means the registered credit grantors may attract more customers because they know that one is not going to expect or want to retrieve his money unlawfully.
Give me my money.
Creating unlawful conducts. And then the fourth point, it will lead to more customers through credit sales as they are now protected from abuse. In other words, now it may lead to more customers because customers will know that, oh, now I'm going to borrow money there and I know that I won't be facing any abuse from the credit grantor. And then the fifth point, it prevents reckless lending and prevent the business from being bankrupt. Yes, the business won't be bankrupt because they borrow or they grant credit to the people who will be able to pay back that money. Then our last point, it increase the cash sales and credit sales can only be granted to qualified customers. It means the customers, the businesses, they won't borrow people who won't be able to pay back that money. That will be our positive impact. Now let's go to our negative impact. The debt collection procedure are more complex and expensive. The collection procedure, guys, you need to know the address of the person. You need to know where they are, the next of kin of those people. Then that become expensive for the business. The business can no longer carry out credit market. It means the business now will struggle to have sales. And then our third point, the business that do not comply with National Credit Act, they may face legal action. And then our fourth point,
businesses need to ensure that all attempts have been exhausted to recover debt before blacklisting the consumer.
No, you've been blacklisted.
Businesses or credit providers cannot collect a debt from consumers who are under debt review.
And then our last point,
businesses that grant credit recklessly cannot recover the debt.
now we'll be talking about the actions that are regarded as non-compliance or discrimination. We discriminate on which terms in terms of National Credit Act. Our first point, when you refuse to grant credit to customers based on gender, when you discriminate, therefore you will be conducting non-compliance. You don't want to provide credit to someone just because of the color of the skin or just because of sexual preferences. Therefore, you will be regarded as non-complying in terms of National Credit Act. Then our second point, when we are charging different interest rate to your customers based on gender, based on sexual preferences, based on whatever, if you are charging different interest rate, therefore you'll be regarded as you are conducting a non-compliance. Then the other point, when we are blacklisting customers without making an effort to retrieve that debt, therefore you'll be regarded as you are conducting a non-compliance.
Granting credit recklessly to consumers and failing to explain the credit contract. Failing to conduct affordability assessment to determine whether the customer actually can afford the credit being offered.
Now, let us talk about the penalties now, the consequences of conducting non-compliance. What will be the penalties for conducting non-compliance?
Non-compliance will result in a penalty.
Businesses may not demand payment sue or attach the customer's salaries assets to repay the debt.
Then a second non-compliant, the business may not charge any fee or interest other than the charges that are specified on that contract. The third point, the court may declare the granting of credit by the business recklessly and may order customers not to repay that money.
I will not pay it.
Because it's a responsibility of that credit grantor, granted credit, knowing that that person that is not credit worthy. Therefore, a court may order that customer not to pay that money. Then the other fact, the National Credit Regulator may impose fine or penalties to the business who do not who conduct non-compliance. The business will bear all the costs of removing that customer who was granted credit recklessly by removing the name of that customer from credit bureaus, from where it will be the responsibility of the credit grantor to remove, because it fault caused by that credit grantor.
The business license may be revoked for reckless granting of credit and violating the NCA.
The ways now, let's talk about the ways in which the business can comply with National Credit Act. How can a business comply with National Credit Act? They need to offer a pre-agreement statement. Before one take a loan, one will be given a pre-statement. So one need to think about it, must be given that pre-statement before that person being granted a credit. Number one. And then the second point, the business doesn't have to have hidden cost. All the costs need to be transparent. One need to know exactly how much interest will be paid or how much will be charged in terms, or how much will be added on that loan if you are taking a loan. No information, everything should be disclosed by the credit grantor. Then the third point, it's the responsibility of the business to obtain credit record, to check the client before you grant credit. That's how you comply. And then the other point, the business need to be registered with national credit regulators. If you are a credit grantor, if you are a credit seller, you need to be registered. You need to be registered with national credit regulators. And then the other point, the business is supposed to submit an annual compliance report to the national credit regulators. Then our last point, you need to conduct an affordability assessment. Before you grant credit, you need to check does one have an affordability? Does one, after paid, if one has paid all his debts after the salary paid, whatever, how much one is going to be able to afford to live after that? We call that an affordability. As a business is supposed to conduct an affordability assessment before granting a credit. That's how the business should comply with National Credit Act. Thank you very much for watching our video. So in the next video we'll be watching Consumer Protection Act, and then please I would appreciate a lot if you subscribe in our videos. Thank you very much.